A bloody, dangerous, and dirty game. That's how Vladimir Putin has described the West's current international policy. He was speaking at the annual session of the Valdai International Discussion Club here in Moscow, where he addressed a number of major global issues. Here are some of the highlights.
The so-called collective West. It's a nominal term, of course, since there's no unity there. In the past few months, it has made a number of steps towards escalation. Dominating the world is something the West has put at stake in its game. But this game is certainly dangerous, bloody, and I would say, dirty. We are seeing not a systemic, but a doctrinal crisis of the American-style neoliberal model of world order. They simply have nothing to offer the world, except for their continued hegemony. Today's universal rule of the West is to turn everybody into instruments used to achieve its goals. And if anyone doesn't want to become such an instrument, they are targeted with sanctions or even face organised coups. And if none of this works, the ultimate goal is to destroy them.
RT's Maria Finoshina told me more about the main points of the Russian president's speech.
It has been an almost 4-hour session, and a lot of that was Vladimir Putin's merciless, harsh critique of the West's neo-colonial hegemony policy. This is how the Russian president called it. The West, Vladimir Putin went on, is blinded by its own superiority and its aspirations to rule and dominate the world. It imposes the rules of the game, Vladimir Putin continued, and punishes all those disagreeing with that. To illustrate the West's common but outrageous practice to interfere in other countries' affairs, Vladimir Putin reminded about the U.S.-ordered assassination of top Iranian general. They killed Soleimani on the territory of another state and said, yes, we killed him. Vladimir Putin decried, questioning what world we are living in. But he said that the situation is dramatically changing right now as the West is losing its dominance, power, influence and trust, and is quickly becoming, quotation, a minority on the global stage. And therefore, it is in very deep crisis. It is actually unable, he said, to accept or admit or adjust to this new multipolar reality in which new centers of power are quickly emerging globally, especially in Asia and Africa. This is what Vladimir Putin had to say.
As soon as the benefits of globalization began to profit not only Western countries, but also major Asian states, the West immediately changed or even abolished the rules. Such arrogance has been in place since colonial times, when they considered all people second class, but themselves. Today, new centres of power are appearing. Take Asia or Africa. Yes, Africa is a poor continent, as of yet, but it does have great potential. And look at Latin America. All these countries will continue their development.
Vladimir Putin also accused the West of destabilizing the global situation in many spheres and in many parts of the globe. He mentioned provocations in Taiwan, gas pipeline destruction, food and energy crisis that Vladimir Putin repeatedly blames the West for. Speaking about conflict in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin called it a civil war and said that the West is actually able to end it simply by directing the Ukrainian government to seek peace, but they do not do that. Vladimir Putin also claimed that the West should global finance system and that the dollar discredited the world's finance reserves, stressing that if the West is selling something to other countries, it immediately requests national production to stop, and that kills local national economies and local producers. But the West, Vladimir Putin continued, does not care about that. It is only thinking about its own interests, benefits and profits. And this is why he said the use of national currencies should become a priority. And Vladimir Putin also said that we live in a historic moment and the next 10 years will be the most unpredictable, dangerous, but at the same time, the most important decade since World War II. And in this literally hostile environment, Vladimir Putin said Russia is trying to fight for its own interest and is actually getting support from around the globe. This is what he had to say.
Our Western partners are doing everything to slander and humiliate Russia, to ignore its interests. And when we fight for our interests openly and courageously, This very fact is contagious and attractive to 1 billion people on the planet. Look, there are Russian flags in many African countries now, in Latin America as well as in Asia. We have a lot of friends and we don't need to force anyone. It's just that many leaders and citizens are tired of living under external diktat.
But at the same time, Vladimir Putin said that Russia does not fundamentally see itself as the enemy of the West, but it opposes the West's attempts to impose strange values in other countries and in Russia as well. Vladimir Putin said that there are at least two Wests. One, the West of traditional, primarily Christian values, freedom, patriotism, richest culture. And this is something that Russia is very close to. But there is another West, aggressive, cosmopolitan, neo-colonial, that is used as a tool for neoliberal elites, Vladimir Putin said, and Russia will never submit to the dominance of this second West. But at the end, Vladimir Putin said that he hopes that pragmatism will win and the West will be able to get back to the dialogue with the rest of the world.
Geopolitics expert Pierre-Emmanuel Thomas told us he believes the Russian president's speech is an offer of an alternative world order.
It was very interesting to hear that Vladimir Putin emphasized on the fact that there are two types of West. There is the West which is refusing multipolarity and unable to find a common agreement with Russia, but there is also another West. The West which is based on traditional values in Europe, traditional approach to society, balance of power, maintain roots in the European civilization, and this part of Europe could negotiate an agreement with Russia. All these nations which are part of a greater West, I would say, but with emphasizing traditional values, sovereignty, balance of power between nations, can offer an alternative model to the unipolar world and be in peace and stability in the new multipolar world. So I think this speech was an offer to Europe